An army marches on its stomach, Napoleon once declared, highlighting the critical importance of logistical support for any successful military campaign. However, the stability of an army relies not only on food, clothing, and shelter, but also on its financial support. Without proper payment, even the best supplied army could quickly deteriorate. The Romans, masters of administration and organization, understood this well. Their innovative military payment system offers a fascinating window into the financial lives of soldiers, their expenses, and their savings habits. This video explores the Roman military stipendium, salary, bonuses, deductions, and how soldiers manage their earnings, illustrating the human side of one of history's greatest armies. The early days of Roman military pay. Roman military compensation dates back to around 400 BC, a time when soldiers were compensated not with money but with goods. In the early Roman Republic, military service was regarded as a civic duty rather than a profession. Citizens were expected to defend the state without expecting financial reward. The stipendium, introduced as a form of compensation, was designed to make up for the income soldiers lost while serving. It wasn't considered a salary in the modern sense, but rather a reimbursement for their time and effort. The stipendium underwent significant changes over time. As Rome's influence expanded, wars became longer and more demanding. Soldiers could no longer afford to leave their livelihoods indefinitely. To address this, the stipendium evolved into a more structured and reliable form of payment. By the time of Julius Caesar and Augustus, military service had transformed into a professional career. Soldiers were no longer temporary defenders, but permanent members of a standing army, and their stipendium reflected this shift, becoming a formal yearly salary. The transition to a professional army. Under Augustus, the Roman military became a fully professional force. Soldiers could now rely on their salaries not only to support themselves, but also to build a future. Payment structures were standardized, with different ranks receiving fixed wages. For instance, a standard legionary earned less than a centurion, and a centurion earned less than a primus pilus, the senior centurion of a legion. Auxiliaries, who were non-citizen troops, also had their own pay scales. This professionalization of the army marked a turning point. Military service was no longer a temporary commitment, but a long-term career, often lasting 25 years. Soldiers could now plan for retirement, using their earnings to secure land, start businesses, or support their families. Economic fluctuations and salary adjustments. The salaries of Roman soldiers were not fixed but fluctuated based on economic conditions and the policies of individual emperors. Domitian, for example, increased salaries by 33% to combat inflation and ensure soldiers could maintain their purchasing power. While such actions might seem generous, they often served a strategic purpose, such as securing the loyalty of the troops during political instability. Other emperors, like Septimius Severus and his son Caracalla, became infamous for their lavish payouts to the military. These payouts were not purely altruistic. They were designed to buy the soldiers' loyalty and suppress potential rebellions. Over time, military salaries became an indicator of economic trends within the Roman Empire. For instance, during the late Republic, soldiers earned around 225 denarii annually. By the time of Maximinus Thrax in the 3rd century, this had increased to 1,800 denarii, reflecting both inflation and the growing financial demands of the empire. The payment process. Roman soldiers were paid in installments rather than a lump sum. During the late Republic and early Empire, payments were made 3 times a year, in January, May, and September. Each installment was a significant event, often accompanied by ceremonial inspections of soldiers' equipment to ensure it was well maintained. The January payment was particularly special, as it coincided with a ceremony during which soldiers renewed their oaths of allegiance to the emperor. For soldiers stationed far from their bases or on extended campaigns, advance payments were sometimes provided, allowing them to prepare for the challenges ahead. Deductions and expenses. While Roman soldiers received regular salaries, their earnings were subject to numerous deductions. The state provided them with weapons, armor, clothing, and rations, but soldiers were required to pay for these items from their own pockets. Deductions covered the cost of repairs, replacements, and additional supplies. For instance, a soldier who wanted double rations would have the cost deducted from his pay. The expenses didn't stop there. Soldiers also contributed to the maintenance of their unit's standards, symbolic flags or emblems, and participated in funding celebrations, such as the Saturnalia festival in December. Auxiliary soldier Quintus Iulius Proculus, for example, lost nearly half his salary to these recurring expenses, as documented in a preserved account. The role of military bank accounts. After deductions, soldiers could choose to deposit their remaining earnings into personal military bank accounts. These accounts were managed by the standard bearers, who acted as treasurers for their units. Standard bearers were responsible for recording all transactions, including salaries, deductions, and deposits. They were aided by literate soldiers who were skilled in mathematics and bookkeeping. These accounts provided soldiers with a sense of security. Funds were stored in heavily fortified locations, such as underground vaults within military forts. At Vindolanda, a Roman fort in Britain, the unit's treasury was located in the most secure building, protected by centurions and other soldiers. Despite occasional instances of theft and corruption, depositing money in these accounts was generally considered the safest option. Spending habits of soldiers. While some soldiers saved diligently, others spent their earnings on luxuries and indulgences. Originating from lower social classes, many soldiers lacked financial literacy and were unaccustomed to managing significant sums of money. This often led to impulsive spending. Perfumes, silk clothing, fine wines, and extravagant meals were popular indulgences among soldiers. Julius Caesar himself faced criticism for allowing his troops to use perfumes, which were considered unmanly by Roman elites. Taverns, baths, and other recreational activities also drained soldiers' finances, particularly during periods of idleness. One particularly famous example of reckless spending comes from Sulla's veterans, who squandered their substantial rewards of money and land within a few years. Gravestones from the era sometimes mockingly reflect these habits. One inscription reads, "While I was alive, I drank enthusiastically. Drink therefore, you who are alive." Loans and financial interactions. Interestingly, Roman soldiers often loaned money to one another, creating an informal financial network within the army. Wealthier soldiers acted as creditors, offering loans to their comrades at modest interest rates. These loans were typically secured with personal possessions, such as weapons or armor, to ensure repayment. A notable example involves Lucius Caecilius Secundus, a cavalryman who borrowed 150 denarii and pledged his silver inlaid helmet as collateral. Such transactions highlight the camaraderie and trust among soldiers, as well as their resourcefulness in managing financial challenges. Retirement and post-service investments. Upon completing their service, Roman soldiers had several options for utilizing their savings. Many invested in businesses or land, securing a stable income for their retirement. For instance, Vitulinius Felix, a veteran of the I Minervia Legion, established a pottery shop, while Lucius Belinus Gemellus purchased olive orchards in Egypt. Veterans often enjoyed a high standard of living, particularly those who had earned double pay or higher ranks. Some became patrons of their local communities, supporting public works or funding celebrations. Others joined veteran associations, maintaining strong social bonds with their former comrades. Thanks for watching, History Buffs. If you're feeling inspired to open your own military bank account, just make sure you don't spend your first paycheck on perfumes like Caesar's soldiers, or you might end up with half your gear in battle. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or we'll send a Roman centurion to inspect your finances. See you in the next video, where ancient history gets hilariously real.